So this video, I actually want to talk a little bit about weakness, some weaknesses of Cathedral. Cathedral's incredibly strong, and let's not make no bones about that. But if we assume we're on a board where there's no extra gains, which I'm going to simulate by ignoring all of the extra gains that are actually here, um, you might think even for money, straight money, Cathedral's pretty good. And you're in fact guaranteed to be getting all of the draws that I'm getting. So if you open 3-4 or 4-3, you're going to get a silver on turn 2. You're going to for sure get silvers on 3 and 4. You're going to for sure get a gold and a silver on turns 5 and 6. It's just guaranteed. Um, and then turn 7 things start to not be guaranteed, but so this is like a terrible draw. Uh, and then pretty soon here, you're going to say, well, I should start provincing. And it looks like you're going pretty fast for big money. You are. This is, in fact, pretty bad draw. Usually I'd be at 4 provinces by now. And we can see, oh, but I got to 4 provinces pretty fast. This is like not the worst thing ever. Turn 14. But one thing you notice opening Cathedral on a board where there's only one gain per turn, your normal buy that you get from the rules of the game, your deck at that point when you open Cathedral is 10 cards big. And since you're trashing 1 card a turn and buying 1 card a turn, your deck is always 10 cards big. And at this point, I have 4 provinces in my deck, which means that I can no longer be buying provinces. I have 4 green cards, and if I don't want to trash a province, then basically, well, we'll come back to this turn 15. Let's note this. If I don't want to trash a green card, what's going to end up happening is that if I don't want to trash a province, wow, I got a 5 gold hand. Well, I can get a province here, and now I have to trash this gold. I should buy a copper because my deck is cannibalizing itself. But what's going to happen here is sometimes you get to this 5th one, and that's going to come up at certain moments, but you end up doing a lot of this water treading, and certainly by the time you hit 5, it's basically over. Um, you're not going to keep being able to get more provinces. In fact, there's not the money in my deck at this point, right? Yeah, there isn't enough money in my deck. On the perfect draw, then I can get a 7th one, I think. Maybe. But then that means that the next turn, I think it's guaranteed that I would have to trash a province. We're going to see here in a second. Obviously, this takes a long time. And now I have 2 golds and a silver. I just have the 2 golds and a silver. 3 golds. Gold. You can see I'm turn 39 now. I'm not really making any progress. Just waiting for this quote-unquote good draws to show up, which they're not going to do. My deck is slowly deteriorating. And this is obviously with 6 provinces. So what I should just do is, and let's undo all the way back to turn. Right. Okay, so turn 15 here, you just need to mill provinces. Otherwise, you're not going to make progress, really. So you say, okay, right, I'm just going to start milling some provinces and close the game out that way. And there is some chance that you get a hand where you can trash a yellow card and still buy province, but it's not that likely. So, okay, you finish the game out, whatever, but you can't really get much more than 4 provinces, sometimes 5. The 6 was actually incredibly lucky to get the 6th one. I've done a bunch of practice runs of this, and you usually don't get to 6. You usually get stuck on 4 or 5. Eventually, you usually can get a 5th one, but 6 takes a long time. So what does that tell us? 1, if you're doing this, be ready to mill provinces. 2, if you notice this isn't really that much faster than general big money strategies, so like big money Smithy. But on the other hand, right, if Smithy were on the board, you could do Cathedral with the Smithy, and it is going to be a little bit faster. But the big problem here that I want to point out is that if your opponent can score enough points to overcome four provinces or something without, um, yeah, well, basically if they can do that and you're limited to single gains, then they can overcome you with this Cathedral plan. However, how much of a limitation to the Cathedral is this? Someone being able to build bigger. I don't think it's that much of a limitation. I think basically on these boards, it means that some of your other trashers are better. Like I would take Chapel, I would take probably Remake, maybe Steward, certainly Donate, over Cathedral. So it's a step below them there. But even so, on a single game board, what are you really doing that's going to be that much better than this? And then if there's multiple gains, the other big lesson is if you need to hold a lot of green cards in your deck, then Cathedral gets worse because it gets harder to start trashing cards you want while still having the green cards in your hand and having your deck function. So generally, if you're playing with Cathedral, it can be somewhat problematic if what you're trying to do is is going to make you eventually have a lot of green cards in your deck for an extended period of time. Of course, most of the time you don't need to have very many green cards in your deck for very long, so you're just totally fine. And even when you do, Cathedral gives you such a huge speed off the front, off the beginning of the game, that well, it's usually worth going for anyway. Obviously, the other big counter to Cathedral is discard attacks, because if I'm getting militiaed, I can discard my green cards, great. So that's not really a stacking problem as much. But now I have 3 cards and I need to trash one of them. So I end up starting with a 2-card hand. Even this, because it gives you so much speed, is sometimes overcomable, particularly with duration draw or guide or something like that, to where you can increase your hand size anyway. But yeah, that's just militia here would be the bigger thing to watch out for. And then the extra gains, it's a little bit harder to gain like just huge tracts of points with Cathedral, unless you have some very strong combination of cards, which quite frankly there often is such a strong combination where you can, get 15 money and buy 3 things or something. And you do need to note that you are going to have to trash, so that is going to slow you down in comparison to if you had otherwise trashed. But because you're so much faster to start with, I think most of the time uh, the speed of the other options being less than opening Cathedral, which just speeds you up so much. The opening Cathedrals, the initial speed that it gives you is going to outweigh uh, the slower ramp up, because you have to feed your deck some of the often some of the good cards. So just keep that in mind. Um, and really the baseline here is to say, in terms of where I am on evaluating Cathedral right now, I think it's, well, definitely worse than Donate and pretty much worse than Chapel, but very often going to be better than much else in terms of thinning, just because it's so much faster. And again, the speed is you buy it once on turn 1, and then you can just start ramping up, and the thinning is going to be taken care of for the rest of the game. 10 turns in, you're probably done with almost all, if not all, of your starting cards, and you've been able to build for quite a while. And if you're building a strong enough deck that's going fast enough, the game doesn't have to last that much longer into this. Turn 13, turn 14, you're not really needing to get a lot of junk to feed to it, because there's only going to be a few turns where you're out of junk. Anyway, so that's a little bit of caution about Cathedral, in that it does max out on things if gains are hard to come by, but it's still obviously incredibly strong. So thanks for watching this little bit of a theory video, and we'll catch you next time.